The documentary Modern Tide, Mid-Century Architecture on Long Island recently made its Long Island premiere at the Long Island International Film Expo in Belmore. The film was created by Northport resident Jake Gorst.
There's been a lot written about mid-century modern architecture over the years, but usually regional type things. But there's been some great research over the years. We wanted to be able to encapsulate everything into one single film, which is kind of a difficult thing to do because it's a big history. It also involved my grandfather, Andrew Geller, who was an architect that did that type of work. He lived in Northport up until 2 years ago and sadly passed away this past December, but he was also a Northport fixture. Everybody in Northport knew him. I started getting into filmmaking when I was about 7, 8mm camera, I made all kinds of little movies, and I was studying classical animation, but somehow fell into documentary filmmaking. I just love history, and I love cinematography too, so to be able to tell a story like this, and being able to show the architecture in the natural surroundings, it's a beautiful place. Back in 2002, I did a film called LIIFE. It's about a housing development out east in Montauk, and that made it to national public television, and I got a request to work on a film by a production company called Design on Screen. They're based out in Denver. And that film turned out pretty good, so I did another one and then another one, and this is my 4th film for Design on Screen. The past few films have been in Southern California, but I live in Northport, and I kept telling them there's a lot of very interesting stuff to see around Long Island, so they agreed, and we started this film last July. We started first locating houses that still exist. A lot has been torn down, so that was the first thing, finding the locations. My wife, Tracy, who's also the associate producer on this film, we worked very closely throughout the whole process, and lots of phone calls, lots of scouting.
The film gives a wide overview of mid-century homes built all across Long Island by several different architects.
We're talking from about 1930 to 1970. So that includes houses like the Saltzman House out in East Hampton by Richard Meyer, and the Prolroth House by Andrew Geller. There was the Geller House by Marcel Breuer out in Lawrence. We spent a lot of time on the beach, North and South Shore and Fire Island. So there's, it depends on what community you're in as to what houses you're going to really recognize. Mid-century modern architecture on Long Island has somewhat been forgotten, and so one of the purposes in this film is to kind of make people aware of what's out there and what should be preserved. So this is the first screening on Long Island, and it seems to have been received pretty well. So, I don't have to be nervous anymore about that, you might say. But, my hope is that through this screening, through other screenings, eventually this will be out on DVD later in the fall, that it'll create an awareness of what is out there as far as mid-century modern architecture and what can be preserved. And hopefully also people will start to see that there are alternatives to the types of architecture that can be built and what the benefits are in these other types of design.
For more information about the film, you can check out the website designonscreen.org. Collora reporting.